Thank you for joining our Debbie's Dream Foundation webinar series. Today's webinar is featuring Dr. Hussein. I'm Jackie Bello, Programs Manager for Debbie's Dream Foundation, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. We'd like to thank our COVID program sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb and Merck. First, I will share information about stomach cancer and Debbie's Dream Foundation. Then we will hear a presentation with Dr. Hussein. The presentation will be followed by a Q&A discussion. You can type your questions throughout the presentation into the chat section that appears on the webinar menu. We will address questions at the conclusion of the presentation as time allows. This year, nearly 30,000 Americans will be diagnosed with stomach cancer. Stomach cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths worldwide after lung cancer, with a dismal 5-year survival rate of between 20 to 30%, depending on the country. Many patients are asymptomatic during the early stages of stomach cancer, leading to a late diagnosis. Debbie's Dream Foundation is dedicated to raising awareness, advancing funding for stomach cancer research, and providing education and support internationally to patients, families, and caregivers. Our ultimate goal is to make the cure for stomach cancer a reality. Pictured here is Debbie Zellman, the founder of Debbie's Dream Foundation. Debbie was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer in April of 2008. She had no risk factors and only vague symptoms. At the time, she was told her chance of being alive in 5 years was only 4%. She endured harsh chemo regimens and targeted treatments and experienced many reoccurrences over 9.5 years. Unfortunately, Debbie passed away on December 23rd of 2017 at the age of 50 after a 9.5-year battle with cancer. She dedicated herself to helping others with stomach cancer by raising awareness and providing resources and education. Debbie founded DDF in April 2009. As an organization, we will continue her important work and legacy. In a few short years, DDF has achieved many great milestones. We have 32 chapters across the U.S., including Canada and Germany. Our PrEP program helps patients, their families, and caregivers match with survivor and caregiver mentors using disease-specific criteria, including stage, biomarker, and location. We host educational webinars and symposia year-round, and our website contains in-depth information about stomach cancer. We have also provided $1 million in research grants to date. COVID brings about new challenges for the cancer community. Through our COVID-19 resource program, we offer the following free resources: COVID kits that include face masks, hand sanitizer, and educational material, meal delivery support through Instacart, and mental health support services such as our Facebook Live, Mind, Body, Spirit series, and our monthly stomach cancer support groups. Sign up for these free events on our website. Here you can see some of our upcoming programming. DDF is headquartered in Plantation, Florida. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Also on the slide are important phone numbers and email addresses you can use to contact our office and staff. We will now begin the presentation on COVID-19, what the cancer patient needs to know with Dr. Hussein. Dr. Hussein chairs Memorial Healthcare System's Cancer Committee. He is the Medical Director for Oncology Cancer Research for Memorial Cancer Institute. I'd like to thank Dr. Hussein for taking time out of the schedule today. And now, Doctor, I will give you mouse control and turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be asked by this amazing organization to speak to you today. I have had the honor of meeting the late Debbie several years ago in another event the organization hosted, and I was privileged to speak. I still remember Debbie very well. She was an amazing human being, a mother, a daughter. And again, I'm really honored to be part of this organization today and in the future. Everybody wants to know more about the COVID vaccines. I absolutely understand. We know a lot compared to a year ago, but we still have a lot to learn. What I want to do in the next 45 minutes, I don't really want to give you a biology lecture, but I want to describe to you how the two vaccines that we have against COVID now, how they work, and how vaccines really in general, they work, and how they were created now. There are a lot of questions people have. I absolutely understand. And I think one of the reasons why people have a lot of questions, I believe it's because the rapidity with which those vaccines were created. I hope at the end of this presentation, I convey to you that these vaccines are safe, effective. Yes, they were developed quickly, but nobody cut corners. Nobody tried to rush the situation. You know, I'm sure you have been involved in projects where it used to take 6 months to do something, and because of a crisis, you can do it in 2 days. I mean, it happened to us. I'm involved in the research for cancer. It used to take 6 months to open a study during COVID. We opened studies without cutting any corner, without eliminating any committee in 2 days. So instead of 6 months, 2 days, doing exactly the same, but instead of taking 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for every committee to look at something, we had people sit in the same room and talk and WebEx, and they will approve a study. Again, nobody cut corners. I really would, I hope I can convince you at the end of this that did not happen, and these vaccines are safe and they develop the right way, but they will develop in the setting of a pandemic. Look, this is the culture of a cell. As many of you know, we are made of billions and trillions of these cells. And what I want you to know, look at the blue circle. The blue circle is the nucleus, is the engine of the cell. Everything goes on in the engine. The engine has what we call the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. This is the footprint of us. This what dictates how we look, how the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, how tall, how short. It's all in the engine. It's like the motor of the car. Without it, nothing really works. The DNA is in the cell, and for the DNA, what we call, for it to transmit what it needs to do, it has to be converted into mRNA. mRNA stands for messenger ribonucleic acid. Therefore, a DNA transcription in the nucleus into an mRNA, and then the mRNA is translated to become protein. Now, the protein are these functional molecules. These are actually the ones that are transmitted from the nucleus that will dictate everything we have. Like I said, our characteristics, what cancers we develop, what diseases we develop or we don't develop. Therefore, the DNA has to become mRNA, and the mRNA has to become protein. Look at the mRNA. The mRNA is not in the nucleus. The mRNA is in the pink part of the cell, which is the cytoplasm. Therefore, you have the nucleus, and the rest of the cell is called the cytoplasm. Therefore, the mRNA does not reach the nucleus. And this is really important because the two vaccines we have for COVID are both mRNA. These are mRNA that we give to people, and then the mRNA gets into the cell, not into the nucleus. It does not interfere with the engine of the cell. It does not. It does not change anything in the DNA. The mRNA goes into the cell, and within minutes, it becomes a protein, and then the body produces an antibody against it, and I will show you how that happens. Our immune system is very complex. I mean, I can spend hours and hours talking to you about it, but there are two parts of it. On the left is what we call the B cell, B lymphocytes. On the right, the T. When we get exposed to an antigen is something foreign. It can be a bacteria, it can be a virus, it can be a cancer. The body says, oh, this is new, this is foreign to us, this is antigen. It shouldn't belong in our body. We need to attack it. We need to fight to protect the human being from that antigen. The first thing, the B lymphocytes, they produce an antibody. The antibody, these are molecules that tend to neutralize the antigen. It's actually, it's like little tiny bullets that goes and attacks the antigen to kill it. And in the case of a virus, these are called the neutralizing antibodies because they neutralize the virus. Therefore, the most important thing in our defense against viruses, not only the COVID, I mean, the HSV virus, the HIV virus, the flu virus, is that the B lymphocyte of the immune system will produce the neutralizing antibodies. We will talk about how long these antibodies last. If you remember, I'm sure you've heard, let us test for antibodies, how long the antibodies last. The problem is we don't really have a great test to test for antibodies against COVID. There is 80 of them you can buy on Amazon, but they are really all garbage. They honestly are not very well vetted by the FDA. In addition to the neutralizing antibodies, the other part of the immune system called the T lymphocytes. These are cells that actually go and kill and digest the antigen. Instead of producing an antibody, the cell, you can see on this slide something called phagocyte. Phagocyte, it eats it. It ingests it. Therefore, the T cell, it will ingest the bacteria because sometimes the body cannot produce an antibody for whatever reason. One of the best examples of the T lymphocyte reaction is somebody having tuberculosis, TB. Actually, we don't have antibodies against TB. We have the T cell, they attack the bacteria, the tuberculosis bacteria, and they contain it. If they cannot digest it, they contain it. Like I got exposed to a patient during my third year medical school, to a patient with tuberculosis, and I acquired the tuberculosis bacteria. I became positive, but I have no signs of the disease, thank God, now since 1985. Why? I know I have the bacteria inside me because if I do the test, it is positive. Because these T cells, they went to the mycobacterium, the bacteria that causes tuberculosis. They attacked it and contained it. It's still present. We don't even see where it is, but it can attack it. Now, it is very hard to measure T cells. Therefore, if I can tell you, I can measure antibodies if I find a good test, but I cannot really measure how much T lymphocyte I have to fight COVID or tuberculosis or other infection. And this is really important because some of the vaccines we have, they don't only create antibodies that maybe at one point we can test for, but they create T cell activation. They create T cells. Now, also, even if the antibodies go away, what happens, there are called memory cells. Even if the antibodies go away, if in 2 years you get exposed to the virus, these lymphocytes, they are called memory, they remember. They are not producing the antibody all the time because it's not really efficient. I mean, it's like, I have a heater at home that's on demand versus a heater that heats the water all the time. I don't need something to heat the water all the time. I just need it on demand. These are called memory cells. Therefore, even if the antibodies don't exist, that doesn't mean you are not going to be able to fight the virus because we cannot test for memory cells. It's really hard. Therefore, if you don't have antibodies, that doesn't mean you cannot fight. You have the memory B cells, and then you have the T cells that fight the virus. Therefore, this is how the immune system, works. We all have heard about herd immunity. What really herd immunity is, it's really simple concept. If you have a lot of people immune to a virus, let's suppose there are 10 people in one room, and 8 of them are immune. Even if there is a virus in the room, it will bounce from one person to the other before it reaches the 2 people who are not immune. Therefore, it doesn't like, the viruses, they don't like to jump from one person to the other. So that's why if we get a lot of people immunized, there is less and less probability you will transmit the virus, even if there are people who can be infected because the majority cannot. This is really important. It's really population immunity. That's why vaccinating people against COVID is not just a personal responsibility, it's a population responsibility. Because let me tell you, I can protect myself from a vaccine. I cannot protect you if the majority of the people don't get it, because you don't induce population immunity. This is really a very very important concept, and I know people talk about it a lot nowadays. This is the same thing. We believe the herd immunity with COVID, you need to vaccinate 75 to 85% of the people. It really depends on how infectious the virus is. If the virus is very infectious, you need to vaccinate more to get herd immunity. If the virus is less virulent and contagious, you can get away vaccinating less. The other advantage for vaccination, and I don't know why people are shocked talking about now variants. You know, I hate when people talk about South Africa and Brazilian and UK. These are viruses present. Like somebody said, a pandemic somewhere is a pandemic everywhere. But all these variants, they become because we are not controlling the virus. Therefore, not controlling the virus doesn't only put us at a risk, but it also put us at a risk for having a mutated virus affect us. Viruses mutate. We know that. RNA, especially RNA viruses. That's why we need to get the vaccine for the flu every year. Why do we get every year? Because every year there is a new variant of the virus. Hopefully this doesn't happen with the COVID to a large degree. Now, as I said, the whole world in March and April started working to get together to induce, to work on the vaccine. Not only vaccine, we have also what we call therapeutics. These are the drugs to kill viruses. Unfortunately, we have not really been very successful treating viruses. We really have not. We don't have a lot of good drugs to kill viruses. We have success with hepatitis C, amazing success. You know, we can control HIV virus, but we cannot cure it. We can control HSV, CMV, herpes simplex, all of those, but we don't have a lot of treatment to kill viruses. Although now the NIH is actually establishing a department just to try to work on drugs against viruses. We have done a great job with antibiotics against bacteria, but we have not really invested a lot of time, money, effort, people to have therapeutics against viruses. I know we have remdesivir, and I know we have steroids, and I know we have monoclonal antibodies, but these are only really to control the virus, not to treat it. Therefore, I'm glad to hear that we are having more and more of these initiatives now to actually create a therapeutic against the virus. Because look, what happened in the last year was a miracle. For us to have a vaccine in less than a year is unbelievable. And we may not be that successful next time, God forbid we have a pandemic. Therefore, we need to be able to treat people with the virus before we can have a successful vaccine. And that's why therapeutics are really important. This is just to give you an idea how much money the government, our government in the US and in Europe funded. What happened is in the Operation Warp Speed, which I think it's brilliant. I'm talking from a scientific point of view. I am not going to address politics here, but it was brilliant in that we went to the pharmaceutical companies, and we have here Sanofi, J&J, Pfizer, Moderna. What the government told them, okay, guys, how much do you think a vaccine will cost? $20. We want to give you $2 billion, and we want you to make that virus before you prove it works. So that when it works, we have the vaccines already to be delivered. And that's exactly what we did. And look what we have invested, you know, $2 billion in Sanofi, $1.5 billion in J&J, $2 billion in Pfizer, Moderna, and all these companies. Again, we asked these pharmaceuticals, the government asked them to produce the vaccine. And if the vaccine turned out not to work, you throw it away. Now, you remember the days when we used to talk about millions, now we talk about billions and trillions. I mean, now, you know, 2 to 3 billion is nothing. I mean, every day we lose 4,000 people for COVID. We have thousands of businesses closed. Therefore, to invest this money, in retrospect, this is like a drop in the bucket. I mean, if you count all of this, what, 10 billion? That's really, we lose this every single day, not opening our community and our school. That's how the Warp Speed operation works. And I think it was a brilliant idea. We've never done that before, where we took the risk from the pharmaceutical. We told them, you have no risk. You are going to take the money. We don't care whether the vaccine works or not, just produce it. This is also just put it in in a cartoon when this is actually taken when the operation started. And if you look at the bottom line, the horizontal line, a quarter, 20 quarter, these are quarter 1 of 20, quarter 2 of 20, and you look at the far right, quarter 4 of 22. We were expecting these vaccines to be available in 2022, actually late 2022. Why were we able to get them quicker? Because the virus was so common. For a study to work, and some of you, God forbid, have cancer, participated in the clinical trial. When do we report on a clinical trial? We have 94 at Memorial. I'm involved in dozens. We depend on what we call events. If you have a cancer, you are doing a clinical trial where people relapse very little. It's going to take you 5 to 10 years to see if a treatment works or not. But if you have a cancer that people progresses and they don't do well very quickly, you only need 6 months to have enough what we call events. Like in prostate cancer, in pancreas cancer, we report every year on the data. In breast cancer, we need 5 to 10 years. The reason why these studies finished quickly is because first, everybody got in them, everybody wanted to be involved. And second, we had so much infections. We didn't have to wait to get 200 people infected on a study. We didn't have to wait a year or two. Actually, we got those infected 200 in New York and California in 2 months. And that's why we got the results so quicker, not because anybody cut corners in these results. Again, this is the diversity. And I will tell you, maybe I can go to a slide, show you the different, okay. There are different types of vaccines. There is on the left, there is what we call the DNA-based vaccine. This is actually, you have a DNA of the virus, and what you do, you take that DNA of the virus, you attach it to another virus that's harmless, and you give it to people. What the harmless virus takes that the DNA of the bad virus, puts it in the cell of the person who is vaccinated, and makes the engine, the nucleus of the cell, produce the mRNA and the protein. And by the way, these vaccines are really safe. I mean, you tell me, oh my God, you are giving DNA, what's going to happen to my DNA? This is really inert DNA that gets into the cell. Now, we talked about, and that's the Sanofi vaccine, and actually the preliminary data, unfortunately, of that vaccine, that it has not been very effective. I think it's a dose issue, and they are increasing the dose and doing the study again. Now, the RNA, we talked about the Moderna and the Pfizer. This is not DNA. This is the mRNA. You inject it, it goes into the cell, and the cell tells the cell what protein to produce. Inactivated vaccines, we actually have some, like the polio vaccine. You take the virus, you just inactivate it, you actually burn it. You heat it to kill it, and then you give it to people. It will not cause the disease, but the body recognizes it as foreign and will produce antibody against it. Viral vector vaccines, this is actually the Johnson & Johnson. Let me tell you a couple of words about that. Johnson & Johnson is going to be coming very soon, I think within 2 weeks. This is a viral vector. This is sort of like the DNA, except with the DNA, you take the DNA of the virus, you attach it to a harmless virus. Here, you take a gene from the virus, you attach it to a harmless virus, and you inject it, and then the gene is part of DNA, by the way. A gene is DNA. A gene becomes mRNA, becomes protein. By the way, the flu vaccine is created like that. It's a viral vector genes, therefore it goes into the nucleus. People are so scared, you are gonna screw up my DNA, you are gonna interfere my DNA. And Johnson & Johnson, hopefully in 2 weeks, hopefully it's gonna be reporting that it is effective. The advantage of the Johnson & Johnson is one shot. You don't need to freeze it. You barely put it even just in ordinary refrigerator. You don't even need to put it in the freezer at home. Just in normal refrigeration. Therefore, hopefully that comes. The government has already bought 100 million doses of Johnson & Johnson. And I really believe once this is approved, and God willing, it will in 2 weeks, This is going to be a game changer. It really does. It doesn't need refrigeration. Then, you know, CVS, Walgreens, any pharmacy can give it. One shot. You know, it's hard to track people for a second shot. This is absolutely a game changer. The two vaccines that are available now are the ones in the table with the star. This is the Moderna and the Pfizer. They are almost really identical. Now, yes, the mRNA, you hear about it new. However, the mRNA technology has been available for 15 years. We actually created mRNA vaccine against Ebola, against other diseases, but thank God, luckily, we didn't need them. The diseases went away. Therefore, although, yes, mRNA vaccines are new, but the technology by no means it's new. It actually, we own this technology. It's really amazing, Jackie. You know, I don't want to talk about country of origin. It's from Turkey. The whole mRNA was invented by a Turkish couple who work in Germany. And
yes.
we have the BioNTech company, and the BioNTech approach Pfizer is like, guys, we don't have the money to do the study, and they sold some of the rights to Moderna. Therefore, it's really the same technology. And if you read about the publication of these people in the best journals in the world, this technology has been available for 15 years. Actually, my kids and I, before we took our vaccine, which we did, we got on Zoom for like 3-4 hours, and we were looking at the literature. We didn't know about it. We didn't know, like everybody else. We said, let's educate ourselves. And we educated ourselves, and it's amazing, the dozens and dozens and dozens of papers published showing the safety of these. Therefore, although they are not exactly the same vaccine, because the mRNA of the virus is so huge, you don't need to take all of it. You take a piece of it. The two pieces are different, but they really are part of what we call the protein on the virus, that it's needed for the virus to actually puncture the cell in the lung to infect it. The virus has like spikes, and you need this spike to get into the cell in the lung to infect the lung. And this antibody produces an antibody to neutralize the protein at the spike. Once it attaches to the spike, it changes the spike. Therefore, it cannot go into the cell. It's as simple as that. It really is not very complicated. This is the first vaccine. By the way, for disclosure, I received the 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. Today is day number 44. And I will tell you about what side effects I had, which are trivial. This is here what I told you. The Pfizer, they worked, and BioNTech, they worked on 2 vaccines, something called 16.2b1 and 16.2b2. The 2b2 was found to be a better vaccine. It induced more antibodies in people because they tested on volunteers. And that's why the vaccine, the one we have now, is the one in the table in red, the 16.2b2. I know it doesn't matter to you. And it is an mRNA again. It is not DNA, it's an mRNA, and it induces the neutralizing antibody. These are the 2 studies. One of them was done here, one of them in Germany, and it showed that when you inject people with this vaccine, you don't need to know many of that, you induce antibodies at day 21. But if you inject on day 21 another, it's like a boost. The first shot is a primer, the second shot is a boost, and they decided that the dose of 50 micrograms is the dose to be used. That's how, therefore, the vaccine went through the regular channels, went through what we call phase 1 to find the dose, phase 2 to make sure it's safe, phase 3, that I will tell you again, I promise you, nobody cut corners to get this. This is the phase 1. The phase 1 just to see if it is safe, and it's absolutely safe. And the dose that was decided upon, they tried 10, 20, 30 micrograms, and they decided that the 30 was the right dose. This is, again, more data. I'm just showing you that the data exists. This is, by the way, this is not from TV. This is not from TV shows. This is from scientific journal, the best journals in the world, the New England Journal of Medicine, which is so vetted that we use it. This is the phase 1. This is the side effect. If you look at those 1 days 2, the most common, and we divided the patient into 2 groups, 18 to 55, 65 to 85, both of them are young, of course. Pain at the injection site was the most common. The bar up is percentage. There are around 50–60% of people have pain at the site. It's like somebody kicked you for a day or two. Then redness, really there was no redness, no swelling, just the pain. And by the way, the side effects were the same, whether 18 to 55 on the left or 65 to 85 on the right. People tolerate it really well. This is what we call the systemic symptom. These are the symptoms people were asked about them. It's not like somebody called patient, told them, do you have any symptoms? No, thank you. No. Did you have fever? You have fatigue? You have headache? You have chills? You have vomiting? You have diarrhea? Muscle pain? Joint pain? Therefore, they really were asked. It's what we call solicited side effects. Because some patients, I mean, I participate in the study and I tell my patient in the study, do you have anything? No, I have nothing. Then they go to see the nurse and they tell them how fatigued they are and how much nausea they had. This is really different. Look at those two, the lower bar. The fatigue is a little bit more. The chills a little bit more. And that's exactly what happened with me, honestly. The dose one, I almost had no side effect except the pain at the side for a day and a half. The dose two, I had a little bit of fever and chills. But by the way, it is tiny price to pay to be immune to this virus. This is again more of the side effects. Really, there is really nothing to show you. 5–10% of people have a little bit of side effects. But when you have side effects, honestly, that means that the vaccine is working. You are making antibodies. You are creating these T cells. You are choosing, you know, a division, sort of a division of your immune system to fight this virus if you get exposed to it. That's all what it means. But it doesn't mean if you don't have side effects, you don't have immunity. I'm not saying that. But, you know, I told myself, oh my God, I have a lot of antibodies. I'm that sick. My kids had no side effects at all. This is, okay, I wanna show you this. Let us go over this a little bit in a little bit detail. Look at the far right in green. These are antibodies in patients who were infected at CS convalescent plasma, and on the left, the squares in red, these are the amount of the antibodies from the vaccine at different doses. Compare the numbers up in square red to the square green. 157, 363, 268, 84, 149, 94, all of them. What I'm showing here is that the amount of antibody a person produces after a vaccine are much higher than the antibody you produces after the infection. And that's why we actually are recommending people to get the vaccine even if they were infected. Usually wait a month or two because you already have antibodies. You don't need to rush. We have limited vaccines, but you should receive it later on. And it seems on day 28, you really have the antibodies. Therefore, it is 7 days after the second dose of the Pfizer, you have this 95% immunity. Again, the immunity from the vaccine is much higher than the infection itself. The reason in the middle it's a little bit less because these were a little bit elderly people, 65 to 85. Yes, the antibody, the 84 and 149 are less than on the left, but they are still as high, if not higher than the infection. Therefore, yes, the immune response in elderly people a little bit less, but it's still way more than you will get even if you are infected, God forbid. Therefore, people should be immunized irrespective of age in this study. The other thing, therefore, the antibody you will produce, what we call neutralizing antibody, is more after the vaccine than after the infection. The other thing, you remember I talked to you about the T cell. It's not the antibody, it's the T cell that goes and phagocytize. It actually chews up the bacteria like tuberculosis. You don't get any after the infection. You do not have T cell activation after an infection. But if you look at the amount of T cell, it's called CD4. CD4 are really the good T cells. And you see the graph, everything is shooting up. and that means you are really creating a lot of antibodies. CD8 is also another type of the T cell, and if you look at the curve where it's down, it's underlined with red, the HCS. These are plasma from patients infected, and in the 5 you have 0, 0.002, 0.01, 0.002. There is actually no T cell activation after the infection. Therefore, the vaccine produces more antibodies, quicker antibodies, more higher titers, and definitely T cell activation that the infection does not produce. I hope this is really clear. Not that the slide it's too scientific, but that it does this. I talked about the efficacy. This is the, again, here it's the same thing. The dose, they decided to use the 30 micrograms. You know, some people think maybe it's a little bit too high. I don't know. 30 micrograms is the dose we are giving, and this is the site. This is actually the results of the phase 3. This is the study that was published in the New England, and let's look at the data. Therefore, it's 2 doses, the Pfizer, 21 days apart, 95% effective. 43,661 people participated, and they are divided into 2 groups. Now, let's look at the table below on the right. This is the results. Among those who received the vaccine, 8 patients out of 20,000, they had COVID. While in the placebo, because this was what we call placebo control, therefore everybody took a shot, whether it's the real vaccine or the placebo. Out of the placebo group, 162 people developed the vaccine, the COVID. Therefore, there was way less people in the vaccine, 8 versus 162. But what's more important, even in the vaccine, out of the 8, there was only 1 patient with severe case. While in the placebo, 9 patients had severe cases. Therefore, the vaccine reduces drastically by 95% the risk of having the virus, and it reduces severe cases by 99%. Therefore, even, God forbid, the 5% of people who will develop COVID for the vaccine, almost all of them, it will be mild to moderate. It will never be severe. And unfortunately, who dies from this infection? Those with the severe. Who dies from this infection? Those with the severe cases. Therefore, the vaccine is safe, very effective, 95%. But even those who have the infection, the cases are never severe except 1. This is 1 out of 21,000 people. Therefore, it's like it's like 0.00001%. I really can tell you, if you take the vaccine, you are going to have immunity. There is less than 5% you will have an infection. And even if you have the infection, it's never severe. I mean, these results are amazing. You know, the endpoint in this study was 50%. What I mean by the FDA said to the company, if your vaccine is 50%, we are going to approve it. Because the flu vaccine is 40-50%. But we didn't, I mean, that's the best we have. We said, you know, we're not going to hope for something, you know, we're ambitious, but maybe we'll not get something better than that. And here we are getting 95%. Therefore, this is the result. This is scientific. The FDA reviewed it. The CDC reviewed it. The New England article reviewed it and published. It is around 50-page publication. The New England published the whole protocol of 300 pages. I went over all of it. Everything is transparent. There is nothing in hiding. Therefore, if you know how to read English, if you know how to read science, you can go yourself and read it. You really don't need somebody to translate to you. But this is the basic data. The Moderna is the same thing. It's also an mRNA, and again, this is 30,000 people here in this study. The 2 doses, the only difference here, 28. Some people ask me why 28, not 21. You know what? It's arbitrary. Honestly, I don't know, 15, 21, 28. When we do scientific data, and some of you, I mean, in oncology, I'm a cancer doctor. We follow studies. We do, if a drug is approved, we give it to people based on the study. And we give it exactly the way the study gave it.
Because if you are going to start improvising, how do I guarantee you will get the benefit? I don't know. I mean, even if I change by 5 days, it's unlikely it will change the efficacy. But you know what? We are scientists. We are driven by data. We are going to do it. It's allowed the 3 days plus and minus, by the way. Therefore, 28 days, because if it happened on a holiday, it happened on the weekend and the office is closed. Therefore, I received it 19 days, not 21, because the study allowed the 3 days before or after. Because some people are saying you can take it 12 weeks later, 9 weeks. I don't know based on what. I really don't. Maybe it will be working. Maybe it will work. But I don't have the data. Look here. This is the same thing. Look at the table on the left. Out of 15,000 people who took the vaccine, 11 have COVID. However, out of the 15,000 who took placebo, 185 patients developed it. But look at the severe cases. Even those, the 11 with the vaccine who had COVID, not a single one of them had severe case. While in the placebo, 30 out of the 185. Again, the data is so amazingly the same. By the way, these companies, they were not run by the drug company, these studies. They were run by what we call data safety monitoring committee. The company knew the data when the data safety monitoring company of doctors analyzed the data and then published it, and then the company looked at it. But they did not know what was going on. Every month, this data safety monitoring, which by the way, we do with every study. There is nothing unique here. The only thing unique about these studies, we put billions of dollars. That shows you how much we can achieve if we put our mind to it. We put billions of dollars. Everybody was working on it and analyzing the data. The virus, unfortunately, became so prevalent. You didn't have to wait too long to get events. I mean, you know, to get 185 people with COVID out of 15,000, you go to New York, you get them in 3 days. Unfortunately, at that time. That's why all these really work, that we get the data quickly. But isn't this data the same, whether the Moderna or Pfizer? Yes, there are differences in the vaccine. I'm talking about the data. I mean, to get 95% efficacy, almost no severe cases. I mean, you cannot really duplicate this in any way, shape, or form. Therefore, these are two amazing studies, and the safety of these vaccines has been shown now. I hope these vaccines now, we have 25 million people who took them, and I can tell you the safety is still the same. It's hard to monitor efficacy of the vaccine who are taking it in the public because not many people are really collecting the data on everybody, but we are collecting it on some people. You know, a vaccine, we need immunity. That's why I want to take a deep breath before I say that, because I want to say it right. Look, there are a lot of things in life. It depends on you what you do. It depends on you what I do, you know. But there are a lot of things we affect each other. If I speed on the highway, it doesn't only hurt me, it affects you too. Because you know what? When I speed and I don't follow the rules, I'm going to have an accident and you will be included. There are certain things, it affects me, you know, it affects the person. You want to drink a lot of alcohol, God forbid, you know, you hurt yourself. You want to smoke alone a lot. But there are certain things we really need each other to control. And a pandemic is one of them, guys. We need to reduce the incidence of this infection, whether it's with follow safety measures or with the vaccine, so that we don't prolong it, so that these vaccines work, so that we don't get a lot of variants, and so that we will have herd immunity. But if half the people don't want to take the vaccine, we are never going to have herd immunity. There is no way. But you know what? This number is improving. People are taking it. The percentage of people who took it went up from 40 to 60 to 70%. Therefore, I really believe now it's a matter of supply rather than the willingness and the suspicion about the vaccine itself. These are the two vaccines, the Moderna, two injections, 28 days on the left, 21 days on the right. The Pfizer, the problem with the Pfizer, it needs to be frozen at minus 94 degrees Fahrenheit. Really, most places don't have it. I mean, at Memorial, we're very lucky, as well as other hospitals, North Broward, Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, University of Miami. We were really very organized with this. I'm so proud of Memorial Healthcare System, Memorial Cancer Institute. We got this to give it to our employees. I've never seen anything like that. It's 1 minute. You go in, you wait 15 minutes and you get out. It is so organized. The problem now, we continue to vaccinate people. The problem is the supply. Every time we get 500, 1,000 doses, we publish it and people call. But unfortunately, every time we announce that in half an hour, in an hour, it is really gone. This is the Johnson & Johnson, guys. I'm really optimistic about that. We are waiting on the data on this. This is the data was published about the safety, that it is very safe. This is a adenovirus vector containing vaccine. This is like the flu. Again, I mean, don't worry about adenovirus. They are giving me a virus. You know what? We have been giving this to people and nobody made this conspiracy theory about it. It is very safe. For decades we have been giving it. I really hope and I pray to God this will be approved. We don't have efficacy data. What we have, if you read 1, 2, 3, the fourth bullet, in neutralizing antibody titer against it, 90%. This is the publication. We don't have publication yet about the cases. You remember how I presented to you how many people on placebo on the vaccine, how many severe cases? We do not have this data. We believe Johnson & Johnson are going to analyze this data next week, and hopefully in a week or two they will submit it to the FDA and they get emergency utilization authorization. I'm really hoping they will do that. This doesn't need freezing, and this is one injection. It's really hard to track people to get them to the second dose. I know it sounds ridiculous to us because we are committed, but to some people it's so hard to track them. Again, the first bullet, the spiky protein, again, it's a matter of, are you giving the DNA that becomes mRNA and protein, or you are skipping a step, or you are giving the mRNA and then the protein. Now somebody will tell me, why don't you give the protein? The problem giving the protein is so unstable. Therefore, you inject the protein, it goes away. Therefore, I either have to give DNA to become mRNA to become protein, or I will inject mRNA to become protein. And these are the two types of vaccines we have now. Now, we, as you can see, the CDC decided that healthcare providers should be vaccinated first. And we vaccinated everybody who wants to be vaccinated at Memorial Healthcare System, and I know other healthcare systems. We are now vaccinating people above the age of 65, and I agree with that policy. I really do. But there is a lot. The more people we vaccinate, the better we are. I mean, I honestly believe schools and teachers, we really should focus on them. Man, we really need to open our schools. Students need to go to school. But again, we have nobody identified these people yet, but hopefully soon. But again, it's a supply. As you heard, we bought another 200 million doses from Pfizer and Moderna, and we have 100 million from Johnson & Johnson. We have 200 million from Astrazeneca. Let me tell you the fiasco with Astrazeneca. This is really crazy. Their vaccine works. By the way, UK is approved. What happened with the AstraZeneca, which is a great company, they took the Oxford vaccine and they ran it in other countries. And what happened is in 40,000 people they vaccinated. Unfortunately, the first 10,000 people they vaccinated, the company sent half the dose, did not send the whole dose. But what happened is half of the people took the vaccine, took half a dose and then full dose, rather than full dose and full dose. So half of them took half full, the other half full. And the ridiculous thing is the people who took half and then full did better than those who took full and full. And the company did not really disclose that. It took them few hours. It looked like they planned to do it, and it took them a few hours. But then we realized, we asked question, and then they disclosed it. And that's what happens when you are not transparent. But I have no doubt, because we bought 200 million doses of AstraZeneca. I don't know what happened there, but you know what? they are doing the study again in the US, and hopefully in 2 months we'll get the data, but not sooner than that. So hopefully Astrazeneca will come. You know, cancer patients, I mean, people ask me, should they take it? When I prepared this presentation the first time, I gave it, actually that Saturday before, Dr. Fauci said, yes, I agree. I have been telling people, there are very few people with cancer should not take this vaccine. Of course, people who are allergic, which is 2 to 3 per million. But people like, they are taking some antibodies against the B cells, like rituximab. I think you should discuss it with your doctor. But people with breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, ovarian cancer who are taking chemotherapy, they should take the vaccine. Yes, their response may be a little bit less, but the neutralizing antibody from this vaccine is so high that a little bit less is okay. You are still gonna get protection. Therefore, I will plan it to be like the week of chemo if we can, just to be careful. Not that I know chemo is gonna reduce the efficacy, but just to be careful, I would avoid giving it like the same day or the same week of chemotherapy. But other than that, I really believe it is safe. You know, the safety of it in pregnant women is really unknown, honestly, and I don't know the answer to this question. The problem is pregnant women, when they get COVID, they have major complications. Therefore, this is really the group of people who need to be vaccinated. We don't have safety. My educated gut feeling tells me it is safe, but I cannot tell that. I cannot recommend it to everybody. You really need, pregnant women need to discuss that with their physician. And I guess it really depends on the time in their pregnancy. I think the earlier, maybe there is more risk than later. Like, you know, the last month or two of pregnancy, maybe is, I think it is safe, but like the first month or two, I don't know what it does to the fetus, and nobody really knows. But I think with the pregnancy, this is really a point. I don't think cancer is an issue, and cancer patients, but pregnant is an issue, and they really should discuss it with their physician. What about if you have COVID, should you get the vaccine? And I think I said, yes, you should. When there is 20% of people who get the virus, they don't have antibodies, but they may not be immune. And even those who have the antibodies may not be high enough. And even those who have it high enough may not have the T-cell immunity. Therefore, yes. Now, in person who has an infection, you know what? Can you wait a month or two? I think you should, because you are immune for at least a month or two. One, because the supply is an issue, and second, we really don't know what happens when you do it after an infection. Therefore, patients who have had the infection and they ask me, I will tell them, look, wait a couple of months, 2 to 3 months, you will be okay. It's not really wrong to take it after that, but I recommend to wait. I think that's all what I have, and I really want to again thank you and thank the streamers and thank Jackie for getting us together tonight to talk about this important topic. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today. We did receive some questions during your presentation. I'd like to ask in the remaining time. The first question is, if I received chemotherapy or radiation in the past, does it increase my risk for getting COVID-19?
Very good question. Let me tell you what we know. We know lung cancer patients who are taking treatment and they develop COVID, their mortality rate is 35%. But these are patients, not just chemo. These are patients who are lung cancer. They are smokers. They have COPD. But lung cancer patients, my God, I have lung cancer. It's like, do whatever you can to get this vaccine. Now, breast cancer patients who are taking some mild chemotherapy now, if you took chemotherapy in the past, no, I don't think it really increases your mortality. I really don't. Lung cancer is different because of their lung diseases they have to start with. Good question.
Okay, thank you. Will we have to get vaccinated yearly, similar to the annual flu shot?
Great question. You know, the more we are learning about it, the more I think it will be. I really do. Hopefully not yearly, maybe every 2 years. because I really believe this mRNA technology is different, guys. I really do. But I don't know that for a fact. Now, we know with the Moderna, they followed people who were vaccinated early through 117 days. And these antibodies did not drop. Now, I'm not saying it's only good for 117 days. What I'm saying, it has been tested for up to 117 days. They are testing it now for 200 days. I really believe because of the B cell memory and because of the T cell, it will be at least a year. And I am hoping it's more than that, but we really don't know the answer. I think we'll be vaccinated every year or two.
Okay. Next question. If a patient has received the vaccine, will the T cells be compromised if they go on to immunotherapy treatment?
Great question. 50% of our patients now are immune therapy. And we gave this a lot of thought with focus group, our doctors, to think about it. And there is really no reason. There is really no reason to think that it will be compromised. I mean, can you think instead of having T cells to fight your cancer, you are having some of them to fight, to fight the virus, to produce immunity against the virus? There is billions of T cells. I really don't think, we don't have any evidence. People on immunotherapy have had the infection, their mortality is not higher. They had the vaccine with immunotherapy, and the efficacy is the same. It's a good question, but I wouldn't give it the week you are taking the immunotherapy. Just take it the week, like in the middle of the cycle, immunotherapy given every 3 or 4 weeks, sometimes every 6. I mean, nowadays you cannot really, it's a shame you cannot schedule a vaccine. Unfortunately, I wish we can. People are okay waiting 2 to 3 weeks if they know they will get it. But if it is, okay, if you took the chemo yesterday and somebody is offering you the vaccine today, and you know you're not going to be able to get it in a month, I honestly believe you should take it today and not wait a month. It's risk and benefit. And you guys, nobody knows risk and benefit more than you. You decide on chemo, you decide on these drugs to take based on a phase 3. And that's how you make a decision. And this is no different. Therefore, I really believe you should take the vaccine whenever it becomes available to you. And it doesn't matter which one. Please don't ask me that question. Just take whatever is available to you.
Okay, next question. If a patient has received the vaccine, does this block them from participating in a clinical trial?
Yes, absolutely. Because you are immune, and if you have 95% protection against studies, we want to cure everybody, but honestly, we cannot really report the studies and the efficacy until people have the cancer back. I know it's a shame, or have the virus, because if everybody not having the vaccine, not having the infection, how the vaccine is not the same like a placebo. If I'm giving a drug A versus nothing, and everybody is doing great, then placebo could be as good as drug A. But I'm hoping that more people on placebo will have a disease or the infection than drug A, so that I will show drug A works. And the faster we have those events, the faster I can report on the data. Therefore, if you have the vaccine, you are ineligible to participate in a clinical trial with the vaccines. Yes.
And so can you participate in a clinical trial for cancer treatment?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. No, I'm talking about, I'm sorry. I thought about the clinical trial of a vaccine.
Okay. So,
no,
perfect.
clinical trial, yes, absolutely.
So if you get the COVID vaccine, you can't participate in a clinical trial for the COVID vaccine, but you can participate in a cancer treatment clinical trial.
100%, Jackie, correct.
Perfect. Next question. Will the effectiveness of the vaccine be impacted by chemo?
Most chemo, I would say no. I really don't.
Okay.
Now, there are some antibodies against B cell. There is a drug called rituximab that it depletes the B cells. But theoretically, it's feasible. You don't have enough B cells to produce these neutralizing antibodies. But what about the T cells? But there are very few drugs, really very few, usually lymphoma. Okay. But what we call solid tumors, I don't really believe chemotherapy. Again, even if it reduces it by 10 to 20%, when you have a level of 300 and it goes to 200, it's still way more than the 90 with the infection. Therefore, I am not sure we need all this. To be honest with you, I don't know if we really need all this dose of the vaccine. I believe it's a little bit high, but that's how the study was done.
Next question. If I have cancer and an autoimmune disease, should I still get the vaccine?
Oh my God, that's really, actually 2 days ago, one of my colleagues asked me that question. He has an autoimmune disease. And let me tell you, I actually passed it by a couple of people, by my son, who is really smart about these things. And there is a theoretical concern. And this is give me just 1 minute to explain this. You know, when you inject the mRNA is in this, under the skin, it goes into, and then it goes into the cell. You remember, it goes into the cytoplasm to become protein. Now, can the body produce an antibody against the mRNA before it gets into the cell to become protein? Now, because if you produce an antibody against mRNA, you can actually have an autoimmune disease. Now, my God, it's 5 minutes. Is your immune system so waiting, like, oh my God, you know, it's theoretical concern. This is one. Do people with mRNA may have autoimmune diseases? I think it's so unlikely. 2, now, if you have autoimmune disease, will this vaccine affect you? You know, it depends on how active the autoimmune disease is. To my friend, I said, if your autoimmune disease under control, without like a lot of steroids, without a lot of treatment, because these treatment could decrease the efficacy of the vaccine. If you have like lupus, and lupus is really under control, like on 5 milligrams of prednisone, and you are 75-year-old, I believe you should take the vaccine. Now, if you have lupus and you are on large steroids and monoclonal antibodies and you are 30-year-old, you know what, maybe you shouldn't take it, because even if you develop the virus, your mortality is low. Therefore, everything goes back to risk and benefit. This is a really good question. So I don't think you will have autoimmunity from the vaccine, but if you have autoimmunity already, would it make it worse? Theoretical concern, it depends on how active your autoimmunity and what medications you are on to control it. Because it could reduce your antibody, your body to produce the antibody. That's how you treat autoimmune disease, by suppressing it.
Okay, next question is, hold on. What other vaccines are being developed right now? Would you answer Johnson & Johnson? How soon will these be in the market? Besides Johnson & Johnson, what else is on the horizon?
I think AstraZeneca is coming. I really think that's the crazy thing they did. You know, it's an honest mistake. Again, I really wish they were. I think it works. It's from Oxford. I mean, Oxford, well-known university. It's approved in the UK, by the way. And I'm with them. I honestly believe even 80% is effective. The study here, probably at the end of March, the phase 3 they are doing here will be available. Therefore, I think Johnson & Johnson, that's AstraZeneca. The Sanofi one didn't work, but it's because of how they did the study. They're doing the study again. There are many places they are working on vaccines. I mean, we need 20 of them. Because, I mean, I know it's the US, but I mean, can you think how many billions of people in the world?
Next question. What is the difference between the fast result test and the 2-day test?
Yeah, the fast, this is the quick one. It really detects an antigen in the nasal mucosa. Now, some people can have the antigen, and it can cross-react to other coronaviruses. But there is so much false negative and false positive. But you know, it is for a quick test is okay. Honestly, you know, if it's a test that I can take every day before I go to work, if I'm healthy and I want to make sure I don't have it, I take it as negative. It's that 10% false negative, but I'm comfortable going. The PCR, it actually tests the DNA. It tests the DNA of live viruses, and the false positive there is like 1%. You know what happened in the past? I remember a patient got infected in March, and we tested this person with the rapid test for the antigen, and kept having the antigen until the end of June. You know, we made a mistake. That guy didn't have the virus 2 weeks later. We just kept on testing an antigen that was doing nothing. But we kept that person, but that's in March. Nobody knew what COVID is.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy stayed in quarantine between like mid-March to mid-June.
Oh, no.
You know, we were learning. But we don't do this now, actually. You know, our patient now, if they have it in day 14, we test them. The reason we test them, again, I really shouldn't test them if they have no symptoms. The reason I test them because it's a cancer center. It's really to protect other patients. But I'm comfortable if day 14, for more than a few days, they have no symptoms, no fever, that they are okay. But we test them just because of the exposure to other patients.
Okay, next question. After getting the vaccine, should I still wear a mask? What is your recommendation?
Absolutely. No question about it. You should continue to do, because you know what? Let me tell you what we don't know. Okay, these people develop COVID, but they did not really swab the nasal mucosa of every one of these 40,000 like every 2 days. Now, Moderna did that on limited number of patients in their 30,000 studies, and they have shown that actually the risk of you contracting the disease is less, but it's not zero. Therefore, potentially, you still can have the virus in your nose and transmit it to people, but you are protective yourself. And you know, it's a pandemic. It's not only about me. It's about me and you. So yes, I really believe you should. Now, can you be a little bit more flexible? Can you have 50 people at home with a party? Of course not. Can you go once every 2 to 3 months to an outside restaurant and eat outside if you have the vaccine, you know, a few weeks later? I did it once, I have to admit. I don't know, right, wrong, but anyway. But you wear the mask, you absolutely do it. Especially in travel, guys. Do not think it's a free card for you to get on planes and go to airports and go to malls. Please, no. Feel great about it. You know, I thought the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, I was worried. And then I convinced myself I'm not worried until December 15th. And why? The minute I took the vaccine, I almost cried because it like I had a mountain off my shoulders. That proved I have been worried. I just suppressed it.
Yeah.
Because what can I do about it? I mean, I can worry about it every day. So, you know, it's something you worry about, feel great about taking the vaccine. But please do not think you can do anything you want. No.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for more questions. Dr. Hussein, thank you again for joining us and sharing your expertise. It's so appreciated.
Anytime, Jackie. Good luck, everyone. And I hope everyone will stay safe and be healthy. You and your family is the most important thing. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you to your organization.
I'd like to thank our COVID program sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb and Merck. To view any of our recorded webinars, please visit our lecture library. That concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.